Well, for 3 movies, that wasn't that bad. Seriously, if you're gonna watch this movie, be prepared for a little bit of a long haul. It's one of those movies that feels just a little bit longer than it actually is. The Tomorrow War is a brand new Amazon Prime exclusive movie that stars Chris Pratt as Dave, an ex-soldier turned high school science teacher who gets drafted to fight in a war that is taking place 28 years in the future. At that time, aliens have attacked the planet and they've wiped out most of humankind, and in a last-ditch effort, the survivors have invented a time machine and have gone back in time to present-ish day to recruit people from the past to send them forward into the future to fight in the war. That's the movie in a nutshell, but there is a lot going on. That makes it sound like there's lots of subplots and stuff. No, there isn't. The movie just spends a lot of time establishing its world, the future, and the present so you can understand to the best of your ability what's going on. Honestly, it's the beginning of this movie that I found the weakest as well. It starts off strong enough, sure, with this really cool scene of Chris Pratt dropping in, falling through the sky, and landing on the roof of a hotel. He's all geared up with his rifle and everything, and ooh, what's going on? And then it immediately flashes back and starts to establish the world. That's fine, but we know what's coming. Eventually, people are going to arrive, and they're going to be taking people into the future to fight in this war. That scene is actually pretty cheesy. It's not really a spoiler. They just sort of show up during a soccer game, these soldiers from the future, and without a microphone or anything, this chick just starts talking to the broadcast and everybody can hear her perfectly fine. Soccer fields are pretty big, as far as I know. She probably would have needed a little bit of projection help, but she just says very plainly, "We're from the future, we're fighting a war, and we need your help." I mean, what else was she supposed to do? But it kind of comes across as cheesy. Maybe it was just me. Anyway, the movie continues on, and Chris Pratt, of course, gets drafted, and his first initial response, with a little bit of support from his wife, is to dodge the draft. And immediately I'm like, hey, well, how much time are we going to spend on this attempt of him dodging the draft? Because based on the opening scene, I know he's going to end up there. I don't like when they do that. If you're going to do an opening scene that is from later in the movie, don't spend time with the characters trying to avoid what we know is inevitable. I mean, we know he's going to end up in this war even without that opening scene, but there's a little bit of blissful ignorance when you're not shown a scene from later on. Now, this movie isn't without its spectacle and genuinely impressive production value, especially for an Amazon exclusive. There are plenty of adrenaline-pumping moments, and the creature effects were surprisingly well done. As long as you don't think about the concept too much, there's a decent amount of entertainment to be had here. Chris Pratt wasn't half bad in this role. It's not an earth-shattering performance or anything, but very serviceable for this movie. I also have to give a shout out to Yvonne Strahovski. I hope I said that name right. She's from Chuck. I thought that her performance was spot on, if not a little bit above and beyond what we probably deserved for a movie like this. The rest of the cast is fine. I mean, that's all I can really say about them because we're not given much time to get to know them. And while a few of them seem like they would be interesting to get to know, they're either killed off immediately or completely sidelined for a huge chunk of the movie. Seriously, in an absolutely baffling moment, there's a scene where two characters who I thought for sure they're going to be part of this story and they're going to be part of the comic relief team and they're going to come along on this adventure with him. No, for no reason whatsoever, they sort of make a last stand, and it kind of felt like it was just so the movie could have a last stand moment at the 1/3 mark. It was weird. Dave also meets this other character immediately after he gets drafted. A character clearly meant to be the leader of that comic relief troupe. But not long after that, he just sort of vanishes. Yes, we do get a throwaway explanation later in the movie for why he vanished. But at that point in the movie, it had already made it very clear that all of those characters had been pushed away so that we could focus very specifically on this one new character. It kind of feels like this movie was written by multiple people who were not allowed to communicate during the writing process. And the runtime is something else. It clocks in at 2 hours and 18 minutes, but it feels way longer. That's not because the movie was boring or dragging itself along, at least not until the third act, and that's what I really noticed. This movie has 3 very clearly, smash you over the head obvious, defined acts. So defined that they almost feel like different stories. Again, Different writers forbidden from talking? What I now know as the end of Act 2 honestly felt like the end of the movie when I was watching it. And I was fine with that. But then another scene happened, and I thought, oh, okay, it's a bit of an epilogue. No, because then another scene happened. And then another one. And then you realize that it's a whole new act. It's very jarring, and honestly, if the movie wasn't as polished as it is, it probably would have been much worse. Like I said, you can't think about the logic too much. It's a time travel movie that sets up its own rules, and we do get a very quick scene that explains what those rules are, and then that's just sort of it, and we have to go along with it. Honestly, just sit back and relax and enjoy the action, and you're gonna have a much better time than if you try to figure out the science. This movie feels like a combination of Starship Troopers and Edge of Tomorrow. So if you liked those movies or other movies that are similar to them, then yeah, you're probably going to enjoy The Tomorrow War. For me, The Tomorrow War gets a 6 out of 10. It's a decent sci-fi flick with some awesome action, but it feels very disconnected from itself, which in turn makes it feel a lot longer than it is. It's not the worst thing, but it's not the best either. So what about you guys? Have you watched The Tomorrow War yet? Like I said, it's available on Amazon Prime Video. Let me know what you thought about it, and I will see you all in the next one.